Before Spotify, before iTunes, before CDs, cassettes, or even vinyl records, there was one device that changed everything. One invention that captured sound itself and brought music into every home. The gramophone didn't just play music, it revolutionized human culture forever. Welcome to the Mind Metrics, where we uncover the patterns behind history's greatest innovations. Today, we're exploring the sound evolution that led to the amazing birth of the gramophone, the device that made recorded music possible. What you're about to discover will completely change how you think about the music you listen to every day. The gramophone represents the most important moment in sound evolution. It's the invention that turned sound from something fleeting and temporary into something permanent and shareable. Let's dive into this incredible story, The Problem: Capturing Sound Before the Gramophone. Imagine living in a world where the only way to hear music was live performance. No recordings, no replays, no preservation. Once a performance ended, that exact sound was gone forever. This was humanity's reality before the gramophone and the sound evolution it triggered. For thousands of years, music was ephemeral. The greatest performances by the greatest musicians vanished the moment they ended. Kings couldn't preserve their favorite songs. Sound evolution that would change this seemed impossible. How do you capture something invisible and fleeting like sound? Musicians had to perform live every single time someone wanted to hear their music. If you lived in a small town and a famous opera singer never visited, you'd never hear them. The sound evolution needed to solve this problem hadn't happened yet. Before the gramophone, music was limited by geography, time, and mortality. Scientists and inventors had been dreaming about capturing sound for centuries. Leonardo da Vinci sketched theoretical sound recording devices. But the actual technology for sound evolution didn't exist. The gramophone would eventually solve this, but the path to get there required multiple inventors and decades of experimentation. The world before the gramophone was a world where sound died the instant it was made. The sound evolution that led to the gramophone didn't just change entertainment, it changed the fundamental human relationship with time itself. For the first time, we could preserve moments, not just remember them. Thomas Edison and the phonograph, the first step in sound evolution. In 1877, Thomas Edison made history. He invented the phonograph, the very first device that could record and play back sound. This was the beginning of true sound evolution. But here's the twist. Edison's phonograph wasn't the gramophone, and it had serious problems that nearly killed sound evolution before it really began. Edison's phonograph used tinfoil cylinders to record sound. You'd speak or sing into a horn, which vibrated a needle, which carved grooves into the foil. To play it back, you'd reverse the process. It was groundbreaking, the first proof that sound evolution was possible. Edison called it his favorite invention. But the phonograph had massive limitations that prevented sound evolution from advancing quickly. The tin foil could only be played a few times before it degraded completely. The sound quality was terrible. Scratchy, distorted, barely recognizable. Each cylinder was unique and couldn't be copied, so mass production was impossible. The phonograph was a novelty, not a practical device for sound evolution. Edison himself didn't even see the phonograph's potential for music. He thought sound evolution would be used for office dictation, preserving last words of dying people, or teaching pronunciation. He completely missed that the real sound evolution would come from entertainment. The gramophone would eventually prove him wrong. Edison created the first device in sound evolution, but he didn't understand what he'd created. The phonograph proved capturing sound was possible, but it took another inventor to realize the true potential. Sometimes the person who starts a revolution isn't the one who completes it. The gramophone was still waiting to be born. Emile Berliner and the birth of the gramophone. Enter Emile Berliner, the man who would perfect sound evolution and create the gramophone. In 1887, Berliner looked at Edison's phonograph and saw its fatal flaw. Cylinders couldn't be mass-produced. The sound evolution the world needed required something different: flat discs. This insight would change everything. Berliner invented the gramophone, and the key innovation was the disc format. Instead of recording on cylinders, the gramophone used flat discs made of hard rubber, then shellac, and eventually vinyl. This single change revolutionized sound evolution. Why? Because discs could be stamped from a master copy, allowing mass production for the first time in sound evolution history. The gramophone's sound evolution didn't stop at the format. Berliner improved the sound quality dramatically by using lateral grooves instead of Edison's vertical grooves. The gramophone produced clearer, louder, more accurate sound reproduction. For the first time, recorded music actually sounded like music. The sound evolution was finally reaching its potential, but here's what made the gramophone truly revolutionary in sound evolution. It separated recording from playback. Professional musicians could record once in a studio, and millions of people could buy copies. The gramophone democratized music in a way the phonograph never could. Sound evolution had finally reached the masses. Berliner didn't just invent the gramophone, he invented the entire music industry as we know it. He founded the Berliner Gramophone Company, which later became RCA Victor. He created the concept of record labels, recording artists, and hit records. The gramophone wasn't just a device, it was an entire economic and cultural system built around sound evolution. Berliner's gramophone completed the sound evolution that Edison started. By making recordings mass-producible and affordable, the gramophone transformed music from an exclusive experience for the wealthy into something everyone could enjoy. The gramophone didn't just capture sound, it liberated sound and shared it with the world. The gramophone's impact, how sound evolution changed culture. The gramophone sparked a sound evolution that went far beyond just technology. It fundamentally transformed human culture, social behavior, and even the music itself. Let's look at the shocking ways the gramophone and its sound evolution changed everything. Before the gramophone, music was social and communal. You heard music at concerts, churches, or family gatherings. The gramophone's sound evolution made music private and personal for the first time. People could listen alone in their homes, choosing exactly what they wanted to hear. The gramophone created the concept of personal music taste, which we take for granted today but was revolutionary in sound evolution. The gramophone's sound evolution also transformed what music was created. Before recordings, musicians played long, improvisational performances. The gramophone's disc format limited recordings to about 3 minutes per side. Musicians had to condense their art. This constraint from the gramophone's sound evolution accidentally created the modern song format. The 3 to 4 minute pop song exists because of the gramophone's technical limitations. The gramophone accelerated sound evolution and cultural exchange at unprecedented speed. A jazz record from New Orleans could be purchased in Paris within weeks. The gramophone spread blues, opera, country, classical, and folk music across continents. Musical styles that took centuries to spread before the gramophone now traveled at the speed of shipping. The gramophone made world music possible. The gramophone's sound evolution also preserved voices and performances that would have been lost forever. We can hear Enrico Caruso, one of the greatest opera singers ever, because of the gramophone. We have recordings of musicians from the 1900s thanks to the gramophone. The sound evolution created by the gramophone made history audible, not just readable. Economically, the gramophone created entirely new industries. Recording studios, record stores, music distribution, artist management, entertainment law, all emerged from the gramophone's sound evolution. By the 1920s, the gramophone industry was worth millions. The sound evolution had become big business. The gramophone didn't just record music, it rewrote the rules of culture itself. The sound evolution triggered by the gramophone changed how we create music, consume music, share music. and even think about music. Every streaming service, every download, every playlist today exists because the gramophone proved that sound evolution was possible and profitable. From gramophone to modern sound evolution, the gramophone was just the beginning of sound evolution. Once Berliner proved that sound could be captured, mass-produced, and sold, the race was on to improve sound evolution even further. Let's trace the line from the gramophone to your wireless earbuds. The gramophone dominated sound evolution from the 1890s through the 1940s. But competition drove innovation. Edison's phonograph cylinders competed with Berliner's gramophone discs throughout the early 1900s. Eventually, the gramophone's disc format won because of superior sound evolution. Discs were simply better for mass production and sound quality. The gramophone's sound evolution continued with material improvements. Early gramophone discs were made of shellac, which was fragile and wore out quickly. In 1948, Columbia Records introduced the long-playing vinyl record, 33 1/3 revolutions per minute instead of the gramophone's original 78 revolutions per minute. This advancement in sound evolution allowed for 20+ minutes per side. The album as an art form was born from this gramophone sound evolution. The gramophone's legacy in today's sound evolution. So what's the gramophone's legacy in modern sound evolution? Here's something fascinating. The gramophone is simultaneously obsolete and more influential than ever. Let's explore this paradox in sound evolution. Nobody uses gramophones anymore for practical listening. The technology has been completely surpassed by modern sound evolution. Yet the gramophone established principles that still govern sound evolution today. The concept of a record, the idea of album releases, the business model of recording artists, even the legal framework around copyright, all of these come from the gramophone era of sound evolution. There's also a gramophone revival happening in modern sound evolution. Vinyl record sales have grown every year since 2006. Young people who grew up with digital sound evolution are buying gramophones and gramophone-era vinyl. Why? Because the gramophone's analog sound evolution offers something digital can't. Physical connection to music, tangible ownership, and arguably warmer sound quality. The gramophone also created the concept of fidelity in sound evolution. The idea that recorded sound should accurately reproduce live sound. Every advancement in sound evolution since the gramophone has chased this goal. High fidelity, hi-fi, stereo, surround sound, lossless audio. All of these developments in sound evolution are trying to perfect what the gramophone started. Museums and collectors preserve gramophones as artifacts of sound evolution history. Original gramophone recordings from the 1890s are transferred to digital format to preserve them. The gramophone itself might be obsolete, but the sound evolution it represents is historically priceless. We're archiving the gramophone's sound evolution for future generations. The gramophone's place in sound evolution is secure forever. It's the device that proved sound could be captured, the invention that made music democratic, and the foundation of our entire modern audio world. The sound evolution from silence to Spotify runs directly through the gramophone. Every song you've ever streamed exists because the gramophone proved that sound evolution was possible. So what makes the gramophone truly revolutionary in sound evolution? For thousands of years, sound was temporary. Music lived only in the moment of performance, then vanished forever. The gramophone changed that fundamental truth about reality. The sound evolution triggered by the gramophone meant that for the first time in human history, sound could be permanent. Emile Berliner's gramophone wasn't just an improvement on Edison's phonograph. It was a complete reimagining of sound evolution. By using flat discs instead of cylinders, by making recordings mass-producible, by creating an entire industry around recorded music, the gramophone transformed sound evolution from a laboratory curiosity into a cultural force that shaped the 20th century. The sound evolution that began with the gramophone continues today. Every technological advancement in audio, from vinyl to cassettes to CDs to streaming, builds on the foundation the gramophone established. The gramophone proved that sound evolution was possible, profitable, and world-changing. The gramophone is where human imagination conquered the problem of time itself. The gramophone is the most important musical invention in human history. Not because it had the best sound quality, it didn't. Not because it was perfect, it wasn't. But because the gramophone was first. It was the device that proved sound evolution could work, that captured sound could be shared, that music could be democratized. Every piece of recorded audio that has ever existed owes its existence to the gramophone and the sound evolution it started. The amazing birth of the gramophone wasn't just the birth of a device. It was the birth of recorded sound itself. It was the moment when sound evolution went from impossible to inevitable. What do you think was the most important impact of the gramophone on sound evolution? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this exploration of the gramophone and sound evolution fascinating, subscribe to the Mind Metrics for more deep dives into the innovations that shaped our world. Because understanding the past is the key to appreciating the present. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.